Hello everyone and welcome to yet another live coding and chill. I'm your host Johnny, delighted to be here. I hope you're having amazing Fridays and you're gearing up for an even more amazing, sublime weekend. Today we'll be doing animations. We'll be adding Flair to our Travel Pocket website, which is a CMS travel blog that we've added some functionality last stream, and it's working with PocketBase for the CMS CRM functionality, but finally we'll be adding something that will make people smile and be happy when they are clicking to favorite travel, or when we just hit the homepage, we'll have a nice looping animation to play with. And for that, we'll be using Lottie, which is a library developed by Airbnb many years ago, and is super popular nowadays, even though they don't update it that often. The state of their docs is shocking, to be honest, given that it's Airbnb, one of the best companies, biggest tech companies in the world. They used to be the company to look into for JavaScript linting purposes, for example, and they've left some of the docs fall into disarray. But don't worry, this still works great, and we'll be able to add animations just like these in our app quite easily. At least if we follow the video that I've made a couple of years ago. I'm using Svelte for this one as the example, but you can work with it on any front-end app, not a freeze frame as well. Here, I was watching this video yesterday and I thought I did a great job here, and increasing complexity, teaching even more subjects as we go along. So I think we'll try for the first time ever to also do a watch along of what I'm saying here. And then when I'm doing a Svelte 4 thing that doesn't exist in rooms, we'll do the Svelte 5 thing today and see if things overall still work as advertised back in the day. Real proud of this video, actually. Given this plant is here, like, is it literally this? Not sure, maybe I'm somewhere else. I do love hanging plant, so I'm not 100% certain. Anyway, that's by the by. So animations with Lottie, demo of the website. You can find lots and lots of links in the video description. And you'll see that we have the Travel Pocket website here, that, as we said, we added the like functionality here. So if you're not logged in, you actually get through the login flow, login via Google, and then if you log in, we suddenly remember what you've liked before, and you can click to like something, or unlike, unfavorite, unheart, unstar, whatever you want to call it. Behind the scenes, this is the users to travels relationship, but that's by the by. And if you refresh, of course, we still remember this, and we can still log out, we can log in with a dedicated page as well. Everything works. Click around, let me know if it works for you. But the thing we really want is to give that dopamine hit when people click to like a specific website here. Oh, let's have refreshed the credentials here. Interesting. So yeah, we'll get to the bottom of this. It seems like if you've used the client-side router, then everything works. Just don't worry about it. So extra dopamine hit, you want to make people click on the hearts, you want to engage with the website, so we'll be adding animations. Let me know what you're working on, let me know what you'd like to see from me. Overall, cool subjects get suggested all the time, and things that I think I can make a good stream about, that I can research and do something interesting. I always do. I always try my best. All right, so I've talked about this. Let's start the watch along. I have the code ready to go on the side here. So at some point we'll go to the terminal and bring in a library, I am sure, but let's add the timestamp. A relatively short video as well. So I don't know if we'll watch all of it, but I think I'll make a better case of what Lottie is, when you should use it, when you shouldn't, and all the steps than here coding live without a prepared script. So let's see. Hello and welcome. I'm Johnny, and you want to spark user delight with well-placed, eye-catching animations. And we're gonna do just that with SvelteKit and Lottie. Svelte does have first-class support for transitions and animations, true, but they are limited to what CSS can do. which is a lot, to be fair, but I know I'm limited when it comes to bending CSS rules. I love this game. I'm no After Effects wizard either, but I can do much more, much easier with After Effects. And that's probably what Airbnb was thinking when they created Lottie. Lottie is a delightful library that takes animations you created in After Effects and renders them in web and mobile apps. And when I say you, I'm also including your dedicated design team, your video editor, or most likely some other super talented individual who uploaded their work for free on LottieFiles. So we can just go and search for heart, find the one we like best, and even quickly tweak its color palette. Pretty straightforward way to add on-brand flair for the like functionality in any app, which is amazing as this isn't video. So yeah, LottieFiles is a site I talk about a lot in that video. It's redesigned slightly, but not too much. And you can indeed search for heart or cat or travel or whatever and get any one of them. I think back then you didn't need an account to actually download something. Now you do need an account. And you are limited in exactly how many things you can download and put in your workspace and that sort of thing. So it was giving me a bit of trouble, even though I should have more than enough. Like I don't know what I can do with that. I wonder if I open in like incognito window. Let's see if let's validate whether you actually do need an account for this to happen. It's like you need to log in to actually get this. Oh well, I have downloaded a file from yesterday. We won't go into the details of what is happening with the Lottie app here. It's quite robust, I would say. It does allow you to do a lot of things with layers, with the recoloring stuff. You'll see that I have quite a lot there, quite a lot saved, but not 10, which they claim is the limit. So I'm not sure why they're not allowing me to download this. But yeah, I guess we'll try to download this heart in the end. I've already downloaded this van animation that I've recolored slightly, so that's the one we're going to be using. Copilot. There is not going to be an After Effects tutorial. I don't have a design team or anyone at all. This is where I'm saying that it's just me, and it's still just me. So when I say LottieFiles is cool, it means I've actually used it and genuinely enjoyed it. Still cool, still enjoy it. They are a bit aggressive with wanting you to Rive or whoever else, right? Rive is also quite cool. We may look into it in a following live stream. Let me know if you want. They have such an awesome like call to action button, but of course you want people to click, and the effect here is if you have such a cool button, you just delay the clicking because people want to see like the astronaut come out and climb the stairs and then see the thing actually take off. By the way, but it's a bespoke tool to learn. They want to what I did, which is just click the button. We just want to see the lovely animation. But I didn't go with Rive in that video a couple of years ago because they didn't have that After Effects to downloadable thing that you can put in your app workflow. They have their dedicated editor, which is a good editor, but it's another tool that you will need to learn. Famously, a famous client of Rive is Duolingo, so it can work. And the reason for having this client is that they want to produce very small files for their animations. The thing with LottieFiles, if you just get it straight from an After Effects export into JSON, then it is going to be quite a lot of kilobytes. So I do recommend at some point, don't put it up over the fold, don't put it in a critical page, or load it later. You can try to be a bit clever. And Son says, good afternoon to you as well. I just discovered Lottie last week and was thinking being able to use After Effects for web animations would be cool if Lottie is as simple as it says it is. So let's see today, and do watch this video because I think there is just one thing that we'll need to adapt slightly with Svelte 5. So it's still accurate today. And wow, I was doing 4K even back then. What a guy. So let's move on. And most of all, the community section is too confusing to me. There is no search. So Lottie and LottieFiles it is. If we do a live stream in the future, I will try to work with our website again. And all I want is a search bar where I can search for heart and give me heart animations. It was a bit too confusing back in the day. Today we'll add a big looping animation to make our splash page more fun, and then we'll add a star and star animation in response to user interaction. These are real features in a real app you can check out, and I've also added a dedicated demo page for Lottie for your convenience. Alright, so let's... Even the confetti and the confetti sound, I love this. Yeah, initially for today I was just gonna do the hard animation, and then I watched my video and I was like, oh yeah, let's do a looped animation as well. I was right. Past Johnny, clever man. Let's go to LottieFiles.com, search for cat, and pick this extra cute one, plain with yarn. We could mess with the color palette too, but let's just get on with it and download this in JSON format. Let's move on to our editor. This is our TakeACAD project. You can find open source and free on GitHub. It's a SvelteKit app. You can still find this open source and free, so you can look at the code. For the code we have today, so the monorepo that includes the PocketBase deployment and the local development with Docker and the SvelteKit app that has the actual frontend, the thing that talks to PocketBase in many ways, like we showed in the 4+1 ways to fetch data in SvelteKit, to load data. That one is behind the JOHNNIFY Premium in the JOHNNIFY organization, so you will need to go to johnnyfy.com for this and get this. If you have this, you're in the GitHub and you can get the source code. But let me know if you're having any issues. Here it is running on the right side of the screen. Our first goal is to replace this huge emoji with our animation. This is our index route. This +page.svelte renders this hero component, which has our huge cat emoji. This is what we want to replace. So let's bring in the library we need to make this happen. So nowadays with Svelte 5, and even back in the day, but I didn't know of the Svelte Inspector, with the Svelte Inspector enabled, you can actually press a shortcut, which in my case is a Command Shift, and then it will magically find out which component you're trying to click into. So I guess I don't have a hero section for this, but I can just go to the +page.svelte, similar to what we talked about, and we have this logo, and maybe this is the logo that we want to replace, or we want to put the animation maybe here, maybe we want to make this into a hero component, just to load the stuff here. Not sure. Let me know if you have an opinion on this. Maybe we'll extract quickly all of this into a hero component just to warm up with Svelte. That was the worst way to save this. I'll do it the way I always do it. So let's just collocate this and call it hero.svelte. Paste everything in here, and we'll need to bring in those things actually. Button component, logo component, the page title component, all of these things, which means and put it in a section. Why not? Put this all in a section, just put this in div, of course. It's a mistake. Just put it in a p tag. I was doing in another project, I must have been doing something that needed multiple lines. But this looks fine. Bring in the fresh hero component. Looks the same, but it's in a different component now, and we can focus into it as well. And the goal would probably be an animation here. Let's install lottie-web. On the terminal, let's npmi dev dependency lottie-web. Back in the day when I was using npm for everything for most support and most popularity, I guess. Today for the videos I usually use pnpm because that's replaced I guess the #1 position of the most popular / favorite of mine. But in this project we're using bun, which is along with PNPM, my favorite, but definitely not as popular, not as standard as PNPM. PNPM is battle tested nowadays. And we want to bring in the LottieWeb library. And this GitHub account, GitHub repo, corresponds to this npm package. That gets mentioned in the docs at some point. So if you say, oh, I want to download this for the web, it's like bring in this bodymovin library. And you're like, what is bodymovin? What is all of this? All of this is deprecated. So this bodymovin thing doesn't exist anymore. It's become Lottie. So it's part of Lottie nowadays. If you're looking through the Airbnb docs, don't be confused wherever they say bodymovin, they actually mean Lottie here. You'd expect that they have the docs a bit more updated for this. Yeah, nowadays you don't need power or anything like that. What you do need is to just get LottieWeb. This kind of makes sense. I guess they didn't bother updating the Bower packets, so that stayed with the old name. But this is the one that you want. So in the terminal, we need to go. This is a monorepo, and the front end is in apps web, and it's here that I want to add as a dev dependency, because we had almost everything as a dev dependency in SvelteKit. LottieWeb. Good. That step is done. Brought this in. What else does this guy say? Done. All right. LottieWeb can only run on the browser, so we need to go in our hero components script block and specify we want something to happen on mount, one of the lifecycle methods Svelte provides. What we want to happen is for Lottie to load animation. There are a few options we can pass here. So in this hero component, we want something to happen on mount, as I was saying. Nowadays, probably what you want with Svelte 5 and runes is to use an effect. So it's going to be a side effect. This is going to run on mount, and whatever you return would return on unmount. In fact, if we look at the Svelte 5 docs, and they have the old versus new, does it have the on mount one here? Maybe not, must be somewhere. It is in progress. But the effect rune is the one that we want to use. So under the effect rune docs, they have a section of what this replaces. And one of them is like, sometimes when you wanted to use on mount, maybe you want to use effect. It's kind of similar. So we could get away with using on mount here, but just for the lols, we'll try to use the rune here. And we want to bring in Lottie. This is the package we just got. And we want something to happen here. Lottie load animation. So they have types. This is great. The two most important and mandatory ones are about which animation to actually load and where to put it in. For where to put it in, we've got the container property, and we could use document query selector or similar to find the element we want to put the animation in. But the more svelte way to do this would be by binding the element to a variable. So let's declare let. So we need to tell Lottie where to put the animation in. They have the container parameter, and as if it knew, it's trying to find something that says hero animation. I guess we are in the hero component. And here we could give this like an ID of is this gonna be what we ship to the client? Yes, and the animation is gonna be even bigger. That's one of the reasons that Arrive is a big thing as well. And there is the Lottie Lite version as well that we would be able to use because we're not using all the things from this heavy LottieWeb full fat thing. We'll talk about this. And Johnny Matthew says, you just added Lottie to our Svelte 5 project last week. Nice. Hope it works as smoothly for me today as it did for you. So what you'd see in the Lottie docs usually would be give an ID to the element you want your animation to play in. You can get an element by ID or give it like a global class, and then you can get it by the class. But the Svelte 5 way to do it is to actually pass here a reference to this element. And this has been tricky a few times for me with Svelte 5, but it works the same way. You can have an animation container, or call it whatever, which is going to be an HTML, say, div element. Why not? And then we want this thing. It doesn't need to be a div, can be anything really, but why not make it a div? I think that's what they expect. And we want to bind this to the animation container. And Svelte 5 will do its magic, or indeed other versions of Svelte, to make sure that when the page gets hydrated, we'll have a reference to the element that we want. So we can pass it along here, and this should be happy. However, we also need to tell it which animation we should be loading. So let's see. Animation container. We'll type this as give it the same HTML element, and go down to our UI, remove the emoji, render a div element, and bind this to animation container. By the time our on-mount executes, animation container will already be an HTML element, so we can say container, animation container. Lottie will load the animation inside our animation container. Doing it this way, whatever. How many times did they say animation container there? Lost count. Called the more. So the container is still here, but it doesn't have anything because it's not loading animation, it's not playing anything. This is the place where we said put animation here. Svelte way doesn't really matter in this exact case, as we know we'll only have this one animation playing in just this one element. It's guaranteed to appear exactly and only once in our page, but it will matter for our starring animation later, for example. That animation will live inside elements that appear multiple times in the page and animate asynchronously. So just using document query selector won't cut it. So to recap, so to expand on this later on, we'll want every card to have a hard animation. What would we do there? We have the travel card component, and how would we be given a unique ID to each one? If we weren't using the animation container binding trick, the Svelte 5 way or the Svelte way, to do it, we'd have to like generate a unique ID for every instance of this element. It's just too complicated for no reason. So just do this one, just do this Svelte way, and worry less about this. Worry not at all. Solve a problem you won't even have. We've learned how to get the container element the Svelte way through binding this, a good habit that satisfies all. Also notice how I'm self-closing the div tag, which you soon do, because div elements are not self-closing. The browser does unexpected things if you try to self-close elements that are not self-closing. Div is not a self-closing element. In JSX and React, this does do something. This transpiles into this for you, but that's JSX, that's React. That's not what the browser does. The browser does something very different that we've talked about. Let me know if you want me to talk about it again. But that's why there is this lint hint when you're using Svelte that tells you, don't do this. Divs are not self-closing elements. You probably mean to do something else. And the first time I saw this, I was like, I know what I'm doing. Like this becomes this, but no, that's not exactly how it works. But that's by the by, not really relevant to this discussion. Or maybe I guess it is, because usually the container for your animation will be an empty element, so you'll actually come across this. So don't be annoyed by the lint hint. You need to do this because divs are not self-closing elements. Yes, since I'm talking about this so much, I might as well explain that since this is not a valid element, the browser doesn't quite know what to do with this. And what it will actually do is wrap the thing that you may have after this element. So in the browser, you'll see this becoming this. So this hello tag that you'd never expected it would be inside this div element will be inside this element. And it can cause you trouble, especially since if you're using JSX or React, it will behave differently, but it's not up to the HTML spec. It's just something JSX is doing. So just do what HTML and browsers expect, manually close elements that are not self-closing. Cool. So we're back in this page. Our use cases. That's cool. Second option we need to provide here is for specifying the animation we want to load. And again, we have a couple of ways to do it. We could use the path option, which takes a URL, so we could even copy and paste the one serving from the LottieFiles CDN and not need to download or host anything. But the way LottieWeb works means it will be making that request every time we render this component. So let's see our animation working. Behind the scenes, before this stream started, I did download this van animation. As I said, it lives in a static directory, so we should be able to hit it with, what was the parameter again? Path. Using the path parameter, saying just van.json. And there you go, bam, done, solved. But what's the problem here? The problem is that every time this animation appears, so if we navigate through the site and we actually go to see all the travels and back in the homepage, we're getting this again. Now we are saved by caching, but that's not exactly what we want. Why get into that trouble where the browser does try to load the same animation again and again, instead of knowing that it's just the same one and keep using it? So just 1 millisecond or 3 milliseconds, maybe it's not that big a deal. Keep in mind that this is running locally though, so that might affect things. But yeah, caching can solve your problems here, but you may not have a problem in the first place, like remove the problem to begin with again by doing the next thing that I'm gonna be talking about. Which is bad enough for when people are navigating around the website and back to the homepage. That's already more requests than we'd have liked, but it's downright disastrous for our starting example later, where we'd be making a separate request for every star we enter on the page. This is a fun problem because we can mitigate it. We can make it a bit better by serving. So if we did it in the same naive way and we had 10 cards in the page, they'll be doing 10 requests for the same resource. And it would be cached every time, but it's still, why get it from the cache when you can just not get it at all, always have it. The resource from our own domain, we can heavily cache it, we can cache it on the user's browser even, but all of that would be micro-optimizing a problem we don't need to have in the first place. So to avoid... I was surprised I had an F1 reference in the video. Made myself laugh. Altogether, we will not use path. Instead, we'll use animation data, which takes the JSON object of the animation itself. Essentially, instead of telling LottieWeb, here's the path for you to fetch the animation from, we're saying, here's the animation data you need. You're welcome. And animation data is the JSON we downloaded earlier, so we can open the directory of our hero component, open our downloads directory, and drag and drop that animation JSON, and even rename it to something short and snappy. And now, thanks to Vite, we can just import animation data from cut-with-yarn.json, and that's what will pass to our load animation. With that, our animation renders perfectly because the two other Lottie... So, instead of getting it from this asset path, I'm saying that with Vite, it's actually very easy to just import a JSON file. Should I put this into its own component? Maybe not. So I'll just move this here. And this JSON, if you're feeling quite frisky and you don't want to use the LottieFiles editor, you can often find colors, especially if you know the hex code of the color that you're trying to target. And then, like, if you know that there is a black color here, you can actually try to find it and change it into the hex code of your app, like without having to use the editor. But that's by the by. Anyway, we have this collocated with our hero component in this instance. Can be anywhere in the app so long as you can hunt it down. And what we want is to import, like the one animation, let's say, from one JSON. You can call it like hero animation or something, and pass it as animation data. Can also call these names exactly the keys and then sort of assign them. But you can see that it works the same. But when I navigate back, I don't get the extra hit. I don't get the extra import of one JSON. So now that I've already loaded it, and Svelte already has the component rendered before, it will not request it. It will be part of the one bundle. So no more one requests or anything like that. Which is great, which is good. The first time we load, it does get loaded. Every time we keep navigating the site, we don't load it again. Great. And this one, because we've been here before, it's also cast, so it's not like you're losing anything by doing it this way. Unless, like, I guess if you have it, but no, I don't think LottieFiles is going to have a better CDN than the one you'll be able to set up or you'll be automatically deploying to. And it will definitely be more costly to get it from them. So that's it. So yeah, like if you have someone who is familiar with After Effects, then it will be easy for them. Like they may need a plugin, that's where they may need the bodymovin plugin or something else to export the After Effects animation into the JSON format. But I think nowadays they just have it in the software. Anyway, especially if you're familiar with After Effects or you have a person that is familiar with After Effects, design it there, export it, and use it on your site. The concern is going to be like the weight of the Lottie library and the weight of the animation itself, but that's by the by. So I'm sure there are some wizards that are able to do a complicated animation like this in CSS, but not quite what I can do. I can do more in After Effects. And I wonder if there is a DaVinci Fusion and Resolve plugin nowadays, because I know that lots and lots of creators are switching to DaVinci Resolve and Fusion. We have like slightly more complicated bits to go, but it's quite fun. Animation from Joy of Code. Joy of Code, I do know. Hello, Fanglau, first of all. And I haven't used that one. I have seen some Joy of Code videos and they're great. That's your name. It's a band. I'll have to start it immediately based on your recommendation and have a look. Just from what I think, I imagine that it will be similar to Motion 1, which I often use for animations like this, like the more simplistic animations. I've used this one a lot. This is the one behind the Framer Motion people, which is a library for React, and they have awesome stuff going on there. But this one is framework agnostic or no framework at all. You can use it with vanilla JavaScript. So I would guess that this would be similar, like the animation one would be similar to a library like this, which again kind of falls into the place where if you're good with like CSS and these sort of things, you can animate them. But maybe they have like some helper methods for some motion patterns and stuff. But like I think that it's easier to have a person who knows After Effects than it is to figure out those things. I just don't have the vision for them. How are you finding it? Let me know. And I'll definitely give it a try. I always look into the start repos as well. And it's awesome that Joy of Code is doing this. I didn't know this, actually. Pretty cool. Is it Svelte specific? Maybe I'll be looking into that one. Interesting. I wonder if it came about that other project that was about seeing the code slides and having them move nicely, the piece of code you're adding or removing, which was another cool project as well. Interesting. Maybe easier for me to do animations like this because I speak computer. I'll definitely have a look and research and maybe do a live stream next. I was thinking, let me show Rive again here, that maybe a next live stream is this Rive, which has like this button that you don't want to click because the animation just keeps going for ages and you just want to see all of it. It's just ridiculous. But you can kind of see that the editor looks a bit overwhelming. And the hero client, of course, if you've used Duolingo, then you've seen some animations powered by Rive. So yeah, I'll definitely have a look at that. But let's see. Let's keep on with Lottie for today. So what else am I saying here? A lot of animation options we will care about today: loop and autoplay, both default to true, which is what we want in this case, so we don't need to pass them in. Our animation will start playing automatically. All right, so by default, they start whenever they get loaded, immediately they start. And they loop. This animation sadly doesn't seamlessly loop. I would think that the sun would like go back out of frame. But hey, that's sometimes what you get. This is a beautiful animation that I could never draw. Well, I would need to spend like a week to draw and have reference to it. So it's not exactly the vision that I want, not a smooth loop animation, but it is looping. It is not that jarring. It is nice. Automatically and keep looping forever. Everyone agrees this looks wicked cool, but I'd actually advise against having an animation like that before the fold. Use with caution. What we'd usually do is a simpler CSS and SVG based animation in places like this to minimize how much the user needs to load and how much the browser needs to do before the app starts looking all cheeky. Like I put like some, I put Vercel, I put Soscamo, and it's like, oh, look what I've done with my website. I will do a proper video on Core Web Vitals at some point, especially if you keep. I did talk about Core Web Vitals in the Google Fonts video, so I followed up on that one. Asking. But for now, if you really want to put something flashy like this before the fold, at least make sure you specify its dimensions to prevent layout shift. You'll notice our content being pushed down when. So let's see if we have this. If I hard refresh, you'll see that the whole content gets bounced up and down because it's in the middle of a flex growing container. And that's because until this loads, then the browser doesn't know how much space it should get. It's a classic problem that you have with images as well. And you get the cumulative layout shift. That's really bad. It's one of the core web vitals, and you definitely don't want to have it for usability, UX, and SEO reasons. And the animation loads. Here I will make it have a specific part according to how big your screen is. Which is a bad user experience and bad for SEO. One of those great cases where those go hand in hand. To get and that was kind of clever of me, of past me. Like if I do like slow 3G connection. Slow 4G. Oh, the times have changed. And hard refresh. Let's see what happens. So the user is ready to click and convert. And all right, as they're thinking about should I explore all travelers or not, they get the animation. It's like they can't click it anymore, and they're like, this website sucks, and they leave, and you miss the conversion. But with specifying exactly how big this container should be, we'll be able to resolve it. Around this, we can specify our container's height with CSS, so it will be taking the exact same vertical. Specify the container's height with CSS. We have the technology. So maybe today we can do like small viewport width as well. But what am I doing here? So exactly the height, I want it to be a custom arbitrary value. We're using Tailwind CSS here. And we want this to be maybe 25 small viewport width. too small. 30. So now we won't get, like you can see that there is space reserved for the animation to come in our slow 40 connection. And then it comes in and it's fine. And life is good. Cool. Yeah, like a quarter of the screen is fine. 3 out of 3 investors agree. Bill Gates, Rich Harris, Johnny McGrippis. One of them is not like the other. So yeah, the responsive design of this site doesn't do anything different for this. I guess we could have like a different column and then have it go side by side or anything like that, but we don't need to do anything special for today, just for this example. I do something cool later though. Space, no matter whether the animation has been loaded or not. And we can even add an extra cheeky CSS animation as well to hide how this gets loaded a bit further. So I have a special animation specified in Tailwind, which makes it appear in. And I wonder, do I actually have it defined in this project, or do I need to find the project, the other project, and add it? I have the fade out animations that slide and fade out that we use for view transitions, but I don't think I have the appear one in this project. So let's steal it. Oh, there you got it new. In the Tailwind config, let's see. There you go, the fade in once. Let's copy both of them. Go to our Tailwind config. I don't think we have animation or keyframe keys, so we can just add them at the end here. We don't want the blinking, that's from the blink cursor animation. And we want the fade in one. So a fade in one just gets you from opacity none and a bit off screen according to your height. Usually I do like minus 50% or something. 25% I guess I'm saying in this case. And then the fade in once, so instead of looping, just do it once, take 1 second and do this. Fade in once slow. Doing this in my Tailwind config should make an animate, what do I call it, fade in once type of thing appear. There you go. I'm surprised that my Tailwind CSS plugin doesn't know that this exists and just puts it at the start. But this helps hide that this gets loaded like slightly after in classic. Classic trick, we can give it one more chance. To show how it looks in a slow connection. Oh, it didn't actually fade in once. Interesting. Interesting. I guess I want to apply this class only after this has loaded. Interesting. So there must be something here we can add. Do I say it on the video, or this is something I just caught down the line? I find this trick keeps sites looking smooth. No one likes things popping in abruptly. All right, splash page flare. Interesting. So we want something to tell us only apply this class after this element has loaded. Let's see if it is gonna work. Because how do we do that? We will say later, and maybe we'll do it later in the video because we'll get a reference to the animation afterwards, and I am talking about this. We'll move on to the start and then come back to this. In fast connections, let's see, fast 4G. Still not fast enough, I would say. No throttling when you actually get it from the cache. It does like appear, it does make it seem like it works, but not quite. So I guess the empty div is animating in, and then we actually load the animation and it starts playing, but the div has already done its thing. So we need to apply this just in time, and we'll do this slightly later. We did do quite a few things here. And to do at some point, I can only imagine this was like 15 minutes in. I'll need to double check, and maybe like 35 minutes in before I started rambling too much. And now we may get to the travel cards. All right, so delivered. Next up, we got these idea cards. If I'm a logged in user, I can star an idea, which means I'll be able to find it in my profile page. If we look at the idea card component, we'll see that this works with SvelteKit form actions. So no form actions on this one. We're using PocketBase, and we have the client-side PocketBase, which I did look into the excellent HandlePyte video to see how you can put things in context and out of context. What HandlePyte is doing in that video is way more complicated than what we're doing, but just so you can see what we've done since is we have a couple helper methods. One of them is the one that the layout component is supposed to execute to put the PocketBase client into the context, and then we have a helper method to get the PocketBase client. This is the thing that the header component or any component that needs PocketBase can use to fish out the PocketBase client out of the context without needing to do all of these things and remember like to type this every time. So this is quite handy. And indeed, you can see, for example, that our layout route is simply calling set PocketBase client, and that's it. And then other components such as the header is doing this helper method get PocketBase client, and it gets the PocketBase client, and then it can do any operations that you wish. This is not particularly a PocketBase video, but you can take this a bit further. And here you can see that I am doing like a couple checks, like what store is valid. It means is user logged in? So even in here, you could have some helper methods that actually get the PocketBase out of the context and then do the operation to check if the user is logged in. And then your header and your other components won't need to actually get the PocketBase and then know that they need to check the auth store and see if this is valid and all of that. All they will need is to run a helper method here, like is user valid, is user logged in, or something like that, and then they can use that Boolean value here. But yeah, that's a bit by the by. What I wanted to say is that the travel card also uses the get PocketBase client method, and it uses PocketBase when you click on these buttons, these heart buttons, to see if you're logged in. If you're not logged in, you go through the login flow. If you've hearted it already, then it deletes your heart record. It deletes the record which ties your user ID to this travel. But if you haven't hearted it, then it ties your user record with this travel, and that's how that's how we keep a record of whether you've hearted a trip or not. So you click this button, you heart and unheart things. This is where we'll want to play the animation, yes, or at some point. Farangla also sends open props from Adam Margal, has some lovely animation keyframes that are worth using. And you didn't realize the inspector is working with Svelte 5. I realized last week on the live stream, and I was so excited. It takes a few minutes to set up, because you actually need to update the Vid plugin as well. So there is a different version of the Vid plugin which enabled this. So this one, you need to bring the next version of this plugin in order to get the Svelte Inspector back. I have been missing it in Svelte 5 projects, the only thing I've been missing really, and I'm delighted that it's here as well. And yeah, in regard of open props, I do have them. I love Adam's videos. They are always awesome. The GUI challenges, those videos are great. And I do have a few things from open props, including the easings apparently and the shadows. Something I did was a bit too ambitious and crushed the whole thing. Whoops. But hey, it happens. So what were we talking about here? Clarifying app overview, PocketBase, client side client overview, did around here, and eventually we'll download something from LottieFiles. We'll get there, I promise. In this episode of developer commentary of my video, let's see if YouTube remembers. Hello and welcome. They don't. So we'll need to go here. Abruptly. All right. So no form actions for this one. We're just using the client-side PocketBase splash page client to do some operations whenever people click the cards. We also keep a real-time connection to whether the user has liked the travel or not. It's just much easier to work with authenticated PocketBase on the client than it is on the server, so we didn't do that complexity before. If we were working with PocketBase strictly on the server, then we'd be doing, of course, form actions again, and today would probably be doing super forms as well, because I've grown accustomed to using it. Delivered. Next up, we got these idea cards. If I'm a logged in user, I can star an idea, which means I'll be able to find it in my profile page. If we look at the idea card component, we'll see that this works with SvelteKit form actions. It's a whole other video to really get into those, but the sort of it is that our ideas page server TS allows for a couple form actions, star and unstar. If the idea is starred already, we submit to the unstar action. If not, we submit to the star action. So that's quite interesting. I didn't have like a toggle star method. I had different methods to handle each case. Interesting. This means if we click the button when an idea is not starred, we want to star it, add it to favorites. Conversely, if it's already starred, we only click on it if we want to unstar it. Again, it doesn't really matter for this video what the form actions actually do or what star idea does behind the scenes. But if you're curious, it hits the Supabase REST API to update a pivot table in our Postgres database. That allows the remote procedure call we execute to retrieve the ideas to also know whether the logged-in user has started an idea or not. Anyways, our goal now is so for the people who really want to get into the weeds, that's how that worked. Replace the star emojis with a fun animation. So let's go to LottieFiles once again, search for star, and we saw that for some reason LottieFiles has decided I'm over my limit of animations, even on recently deleted I have nothing, and in here I have less than 10. Interestingly, I saw the skeleton UI for like more items. Did you also see that? So for some reason they think I have more, I guess. Anyway, doesn't really matter. What we want to do here is download the JSON. Again, another upsell here where they have optimized Lottie JSONs and .lottie that were going to be much smaller bundles. But you only get it if you have Lottie Premium. Oh well, that's how it goes. And we can still modify the color palette here, like the Svelte colors. Doesn't quite work for this one. What I'd want is to make it start like further gray. All right, so I think we can make it work. Let's see if we can. I imagine that this is just FFF. Oh, not quite. Specifically this. Right, so let's be 2 hex. This one, I want full screen, entire screen, put it here. On these cards that we're on, and let's go back to LottieFiles and say I want the lighter color to start here. That was extreme trolling by Lottie here. All right. And no, not all right. I don't understand. The moment you give like a whiter color, it's like it's not gonna work. So yeah, not thrilled with what is happening here. If I also make this white, then it's gonna do something crazy. No? All right. So the first one, I guess, is supposed to be the background. Sure. And then delete it. Oh well. I think it may be trying to do like something too clever. And figure out if it's like too wide, it's gonna use it for something else. Who knows? Who knows, really? 8 cell to hex. We'll get there. Just like some commas. Great. This is what we want. Will it actually work? How? Why yellow? I don't understand. All right, let's get the heart that's there and move on with our lives. This is why I downloaded the other one off screen. Oh, I did download this one earlier. So let's find where the travel card is. Don't open Firefox Developer Edition. Travel card lives here. Maybe should be in its own directory. So let's put travel card and travel card skeleton in the same place. Let's silence the autocomplete. So for this one, travel card skeleton as well. So one of the autocompletes managed, but not this one. Oh well. We got here in the end. And all I wanted to do is find this Finder, this directory, find it in Finder, and drag and drop this soft heart. Missed. And call it heart. Yes. All right. Took a while. We've managed to download things. And again, this is a component that has a button that does some PocketBase stuff, not form actions, which were in the video. Cool. Let's load a new animation. Let's do something exciting. Grab this one. Let's play around with the palette a little bit to see how that flow works. Save it. It just worked for me. Like 2 years ago, they were better. You have an account, you need to attach it to a project and whatever. Not super fond of this, I admit. But we can finally download the JSON file and drag and drop it in the directory of the idea card component. Let's find the directory, drag and drop, and rename. Godot, even then, I was trying it Godot beta. Cool, let's replace our star emojis with the animation, which should be straightforward. It'll be just like we did before, we'll bind a reference to an element. Instead of doing a ternary here to show the correct emoji, let's remove all of that and have our animation container actually be the button. So, maybe for clarity. So, interesting. I have the button be the animation container. Here, I'm not sure if I'd be able to bind this ATCN button, but maybe I will. I was just gonna put like another div in here. And we also get like the accessibility if we put it in a ATCN button, so people can actually tab into the button itself. So I would say that this is probably better for accessibility purposes to not do what I did there, have like an extra div. But again, we can do the same thing and say let animation container is an HTML div element, and go in here and bind this to the animation container. Hearts disappear. We won't be using the heart icon, SVG icon, which in SVGs you can also do cool animations as well. In fact, all of these things are magically transparent, and what the other libraries are doing, they magically turn these into SVG animations very, very often. We can let star button, it's an HTML button element, and we go back to our button and bind this. Awesome. On mount, the magic Svelte lifecycle method. So I guess we essentially want to copy paste what we did before. In here, we'll load our animation. Our container is going to be the star button. A rare case where I did a typo and I didn't like restart the whole process to to capture it cleanly. And even the on-mount import was messed up. Now we need to import the JSON we just downloaded. All right, so this time I will cheat. I'm gonna go to our hero component. Like in the video, I want you to reestablish your learnings. But here, let me copy a couple things. Let's import Lottie. And let's import the effect. Svelte 5 style. put it here in the travel card. And the animation data will be collocated here. Import heart animation from heart.json indeed. And the moment we save, we should see it work. The background is not transparent, so we'll see how we would be able to fix this. Can turn on light mode, so it's less obvious. Let's see, like heart animation here. Is there like an FFF situation? This is the only FFF. If I say like inherit, what's gonna happen? Ah, there you go. Well, I say there you go, and then it gets messed up. Interesting. So first time it seems like it loads it correctly, but then it kind of flips out. Let's see if restarting the server helps any. If I don't do this, if I don't format this, oh, it still doesn't appear anymore. Interesting. Interesting. Oh, it's still... I need to turn off formatting. Format on save. Just for a moment. Yeah, don't format this. So if we don't format it, it seems like it works. I don't know why. Is it like too big if it's on a different line? Who knows? And if I say inherit here, it just works. Great. So maybe this just needs to be minified. And the moment you actually have an unminified JSON, it flips out. If I don't specify this color at all, all right, seems like spoke too soon. Interesting. Every time I save this, it kind of works. And yet, when I go here, it stops working. So let's see, is it like an effect problem? If I actually call this on mount, would it just work? No. I wonder why. The moment I save it, it's happy, but for some reason, it just messes up afterwards. I can only load it once. Let's keep going with the video and we'll troubleshoot this for sure. And pass it in as animation data. And if we save data, however, as fun as this is, this time we don't want the animation to loop or auto start, so we need to specify those options. to be false. So loop we don't want, so it will play once. That's fine. And autoplay false, it will just stay here and never start, which is also fine. If I refresh the page, it stops loading it, which is not fine. But the moment I change these parameters, then it starts working again. So I'm not sure what's the problem there with Lottie. So this runs when a component is mounted to the DOM, and then whenever the dependency changes. So it should just be working. Sometimes in runes, I do get this problem that this is flipping out, that this changes, I guess, from null to something, but it's not declared with state. However, when I look at the Svelte 5 docs, and for the bind this example, they're not using TypeScript here. Ah, they are using state. Oh, that may be the problem. So here's the Svelte 5 thing. Here's the Svelte 5 thing. So this could be it. Declared with state, and then it just works. There you go. So Svelte didn't know that the animation container starts as null, and then when we render it becomes something. But how did you know in this page? Not sure. In the home page, it always worked, but actually a big point here. This is the big change. Like maybe I should make a video about that. That in our hero section, when you bind elements here, like you need to say equals state. Use this rune. Kind of a big thing. So use this. This is unclear to me. I've seen this quite a few times, and I swear I don't always see it like this. And the ESLinter doesn't actually show this. And in component party, so this is where I probably got this habit from. It's saying that in Svelte 4, this is how you got a reference to an element. This is how we did in the video. This is what we were doing. But in Svelte 5 preview, it's doing essentially the same thing, only instead of using onMount, it's using effect here. So it's not using state. I guess that must have been a more recent Svelte 5 change. Sometimes I have seen this linked warning, which thankfully made me realize that this changes, but you're not declaring it with state. So it's not reactive, I guess. And then effect won't know to run this again after this has stopped being null. All right, so good to know. I will definitely make it an extra section. Kind of big one. And all right, cool. We are saying now we're not playing it immediately, we're not looping, but what we want is to play it in the correct state that it was before. Some of them were in the hearted state, some of them were not, but now we're showing them all in the unhearted state. How do we do that? Let's keep going with the video. Sweet, the unstarred state looks sorted. However, some of these ideas we have actually starred. So how do we show them with a filled out star? Essentially, what we really want is for the starred ideas to render their animation on its last frame. How do we do that? As it happens, load animation returns the animation item, which has quite a few handy methods for us to use. So if we get a reference to that, we can say star animation go to and stop. Let's say 10. This number represents time by default, so go to and stop at the 10th millisecond of the animation, which looks the same because a millisecond is like nothing, but the 1000th millisecond, 1 second in, the animation looks like this. Personally, I much prefer working with frames when it comes to animations, so if we pass in true as the second argument, our number will be representing frames. There is no 1000th frame for this animation, but there is a frame number 10. But what we actually want to do is go to exactly the last frame of the animation, which we can find out dynamically by calculating that the last frame is going to be start animation total frames minus 1. Frames are 0 indexed. The very first frame is actually frame number 0, so we need to subtract 1. So if we couldn't have said it better myself. We pass that last frame in, our animation will be guaranteed to go to and stay on its last frame, no matter the animation length. So let's try to do all of that. So we have the animation, and we want animation go to and stop somewhere. And if we said 10, would be on the 10th frame or 20 somewhere. Let's see, it only happens in the beginning. Like too many milliseconds. 5,000? Too much. All right, but this is in milliseconds, which doesn't make sense when working with animations. So let's say true to work with frames. There is no such frame, but the 10th frame is this, 20th frame, 30th frame. It looks so similar until it starts getting purple. It's hard to say. But we want to dynamically figure out when is the last frame. And we said it's total frames minus 1. I wonder if Copilot knows because I've committed the other code 2 years ago. So let's go to the last frame. Good. Some animations in LottieFiles, the last frame is like an empty frame. There is like a glitch, so watch out for that one. But the next part of the video, we don't actually want to go to the last frame. We want to go to the last frame according to whether we've started something or not. But I'll let myself talk about this. So even if we choose a different animation to import, we won't need to change any other code. All right, we got every idea looking like it's in the start state now. What we actually want is to conditionally go to that frame. So if start is truthy, that's when we want to go to the last frame, else we want to go to frame 0, the first frame. And boom, the start state of our ideas is accurately represented. All right, so let's do that. We have the hearted. In this case, if we've hearted this, we want to go to the last frame. If not, we want to go to the start. 0 index, so 0 is the start. And indeed, you can see that this user, me, has hearted this. And if I click, that's quite interesting. Quite interesting indeed. Didn't expect this to happen. I didn't expect to get another button out of this whole situation. But on refresh it works, so I guess we'll try to debug it. So what is happening there? Is it creating yet another button every time I click? Why? Because of this? This should be unique, I guess. Should I specify like a key, like ID or something? What should I specify here? How will this know that we need to clean this up? In the travels, or under the travel cards, we just do like ID, and then maybe it's gonna work a bit better. Nope. I was thinking that this will help Svelte know that these are unique for each ID that you have, but apparently not. Nope. So yeah, this is the identifier thing. So I was thinking that this may help, but it doesn't quite. Wonder why. What do we actually do on click? We just delete or persist another record. If hearted is not null. If I didn't have this case, would that play anything? All right, interesting. So now we have like both versions. But why? Do I like have two buttons somewhere? So this container always exists, and it should be just the one reference. The hearted begins as null because we haven't fetched from the client-side request whether we've hearted this or not, and then it changes again. So I wonder if I also make an effect here to say if hearted is null, then return don't load the animation, like wait for the state to load. Not quite. Maybe the opposite. No, because it's an early out. Interesting. I can only imagine this is happening because we're trying to load this. Is there anything else that I need a reference for? I guess I'll need a reference to the animation element, which we will be doing later. Maybe I want to bring this out. Say that this is going to be an animation item. And say if no animation item and animation container do all of these things. Will that help? Nope. I need to reassign this, of course. So animation item is going to be this. All right, I think this worked. Cool. So I brought out the animation item out of the effect. I made it be state because it will eventually become something. And if we haven't defined it yet, and we do have an animation container, you may not need this, but just in case, then we reassign it to load the animation. So we only load it once. If we've already assigned the animation item, if we already have the animation, I'm not going to load it again. That was the problem that we had. Quite interesting, I should say. And now we have the problem that the button does work. Everything seems to just work, but we don't play the animation when we click, which is going to be the next step. This means we're back to feature parity to what we had before. What remains is to play the animation on click. When I click now, nothing seems to happen. However, if I refresh, you can see that ideas have been start and unstart accordingly. So where and how do we trigger the animation to play when we click? As mentioned previously, we're using SvelteKit form actions for this functionality, and we're also using the enhance action to enhance our forms with clients. We're not using form actions now. If we were, we would also be using superforms to make the form action code a bit easier to read, like less boilerplate for us. It can look confusing at first, but because it's become so popular, I do advise for using superforms as well. But in any case, what we're actually doing here is the old school front-end style. We are clicking a button and then we are mutating some things without submitting to the server anything. Kind of old school for JavaScript, at least. Inside JavaScript, the enhance action optionally takes a method which runs immediately with the form submission. This is where we can do what's called optimistic updates. Before the server tells us that we have indeed succeeded in starting the idea, we can instantly give the user feedback as if everything went perfectly. We're being optimistic. And in case things don't go as planned, our enhance method can return another method which will run after the server responds, which is when we can dismiss our loading indicators or show an error of what went wrong, and even revert back to our previous state, take back our optimistic update. We've already set things up to update our start component accordingly from when we still had the emoji stars, so what remains is to trigger our animation. Let's slide the reference to our animation outside of the onMount so we can... We need to do this to stop loading the animation many times. And use it here too. First, let's make starting work. Much like go to end stop, there is a go to end play method. We can say go to 0 and again specify true as the second argument to use frames, not milliseconds. All right, so if we are authenticated, we do some stuff. Else we go through the login flow for the user to authenticate. We won't be login flow. So this is the one we're concerned with. And in here, we check if we heart or if we if we heart, we do the opposite operation. If we want to make the hearting work first, we'll need to go here and find our animation item and go to and play from the start. 0 and still use frames just for consistency. So now this should work. They're not hearted. Maybe not. Did I actually call it animation item? I think so. Let's go to and play the real thing. It is. Suddenly, doesn't know. Interesting. So why is this any? Because we hadn't brought it in, sure. So, is this a real method? Looks like it. It does work, but it just takes a while. Wow. So this is a bit of a slow animation. For this specific one, we may want to cut some frames. I guess we can even do it here in the editor, maybe. but we won't bother too much about it. So it takes like 45 frames, like half a second for the action to appear, which is not satisfying. And I guess you could like play around with it and just do it like this, like just eyeball it. But I'd say just make your animation nice to begin with. Can we quickly do something with this editor? Do they have like a timeline or something? Handoff and embed. Doesn't have much. Yeah, until like frame 25, literally nothing happens. So I would like to cut this out. But it doesn't look like I'm able to. I'd expect there'd be something here, like a timeline editor. Oh well, let's pretend that we found a better animation for this. Do I have any, actually? Is there another one we like? This one is the one I used in the video, which is fast, but I didn't like it that much. Should we... I don't want to sign up with a different email account. But it feels like there should be something here where you can see the timeline and just trim it a little bit. Oh well, like this looks too bad. So I will actually have const. Start from this one. So wherever we do 0, not quite, not literally whenever. Let's start from the first active frame. All right, so not the best feedback in the world, but still nice. If I had the ability to create this, so if I got into After Effects and created my own, I would also make it take more space, because clearly they have like all this dead space. And even if you need a bit of a buffer for these effects to go, then, you know, there is too much white zone here, which is why the hearts are so small. Oh well. This crashed again as well, doesn't bode well. But let's go. To reverse the animation for unliking, unstarring, unloving. Hello and welcome, I'm Johnny and you want to spark user delight with well-placed, eye-catching animations. Represented. This means we're back to feature parity to what we had before. What remains is to play the animation on click. When I click now, nothing seems to happen. However, so we did do this. If I refresh, you can see that idea milliseconds. Amazingly, this just works, but of course we get the same animation playing even for when we unstar ideas, which is not what we want. Things work fine when we're starting an idea, not when we unstar. Easy enough to fix, very similar to what we did in our onMount. We want to check if we just toggled our start property to be truthy. If it is truthy, go to frame 0 and play. If not, we want to go to the last frame and play. But wait, if we're on the last frame of the animation already, there is no animation left to play, surely. And no, there is not, so what we'll do is play the animation in reverse. We're gonna use another method, setterAction. If start is truthy, we want to play the animation forwards, normally, which we do by specifying 1. Else, we want to play the animation in reverse, which we do by specifying -1. And now it all works perfectly. Or well enough. Sometimes we may want a unique animation for this, or no animation at all for a sad user action. We shouldn't give the user dopamine hits for things we don't want them to do, but for us now, reusing our existing animation in reverse will do just fine. So in this example, the unstarring is the one that feels a bit slow until it slurps back out the the star. But again, like maybe you don't want a fancy animation whenever people unstar things. Maybe you don't want that sort of engagement. We will do things slightly differently. Instead of doing a ternary to set these things, we're already in an if block. So we know that in this case, like user wants to heart. In this case, user wants to unheart. So in this one, animation direction, what's it? Set direction. We want to go forwards, which is 1. And if we are in the unheart case, we want to set the direction to -1 and actually go to the last frame, which we can get like this again. So this should work. Let's check it out. Well, that I didn't expect. Did I do it the opposite way? Yeah, I did it the opposite way, like a mug. This here. All right, so the unheart, we want to go to the last frame and play it backwards. Unheart takes so long. Heart fast, then unheart. All right. Proof of concept offline. I'll need to find a better animation for this. If you make one, let me know. Send it on the Discord and I'll happily use it. And we may also want to do something clever for like dark mode, and we still have this problem here, but hey. Is it because I said inherit and that's not a real thing? Probably. But yeah, small problems we can figure out at some point. I'm sure it's not a skill issue, and it's more a skill issue with this animation. Or my inability to like work with the palette nicely. Oh well, that's by the by. We can keep going since everything works. One last thing, we mentioned this is an optimistic update. When the server responds, this method will execute, so if we get an error, we revert our start property. It's a good idea to add a couple lines to go to and stop, to the appropriate frame, to keep the visuals matching our state. Now, if we simulate being offline, you can see that the revert is so fast. So if something went wrong, then revert back to the other state. So I imagine, like if this doesn't throw, like if this throw will want to go and stop to whatever the state was before. But I'm not going to simulate any errors in this case. I think this hard fails. So we'll want to go to and stop. To where? Whatever we're doing this. So we want to revert back to hearted. Which means we can just use the last frame. And similarly, if this fails, we play the animation immediately, but then we do the PocketBase call. If that fails, revert back to the unhardened state, which should be the first active frame. Yeah, I'm not going to simulate a connection error or something, but you just gotta trust that it would work. Great. We don't even see anything. If we simulate the server responding with an error after a few seconds, we can see the state resetting as well. We usually don't want random animations to play in response to errors, although we probably would want a toast, some... There you go, Faranglow, like the Adam Argyle shoutout. Notification to let the user know that there has been an error and we couldn't star or unstar as they wanted. Believe it or not though, I am gonna call this done. Our starring and unstarring functionality is working absolutely perfectly with all the flair in the world. Again, all of this is open source and free on GitHub. TakeACat is a real app I do maintain to keep up to date with SvelteKit and its breaking changes, its best... One of my favorite One Punch Man panels. Practices, and to showcase how I think some cool things can be done with it. The best ways I learn is by building things, by teaching, and by being wrong on the internet. And TakeACat has become this package deal where I'm doing all three to reinforce. And this live stream, like proof that I'm still doing the same thing. I definitely learned things, maybe told you a few things, but I definitely made mistakes live and learned something. The big one was finally, I think I have a good grip of binding container element with how it's supposed to work with Svelte. So it seems concrete now that you should make any container be equal to state, to use the state rune, I guess. Or else Svelte won't be able to figure out the update. Which I'm not sure if it makes sense or it doesn't make sense, but the way this worked, if you haven't seen that point of the live stream, if we didn't do that, then it got confused and kept adding the animation there, or crashing, I guess. So yeah, for this effect to run properly, Svelte needed to know that the animation container at start is not assigned to anything, and then it gets assigned to something. I guess maybe it's for hot reloads or when you're navigating. I'm not sure when you'd be in that state where this would actually be null, but that's why you need the state rune. This starts as null and then becomes something. If you don't declare it with the state rune, it's not going to be reactive, so things won't work as you expect. That was a big thing. Something else that I learned today, not really. Although we did, in the live stream, we did make this thing with only loading the animation once by making sure that this animation item hasn't been defined already. So again, using the reactive state like this. Our learnings and to let anyone hurt things without needing to faff about with magic links, I've also created this dedicated Lottie demo page. We've got a looping animation, hard, unhard, based on cookies, not Supabase, and a confetti button. Smash that button to celebrate your wins. I'm celebrating making YouTube partner, which means I can finally disable unskippable and mid-roll ads. Believe me, I'd have paid YouTube long ago to stop them from breaking our flow with ads. But that's not possible, so I just had to keep doing this for like 2 years. Though, sometimes it feels more... Who is this guy? More like 13. Anyway, next steps could be experimenting with Lottie Lite, a kinda hidden export from LottieWeb. It ships fewer kilobytes, but only works with the SVG renderer, which is... So Lottie Lite, I mentioned earlier that if we see like the Lottie import here and be like it's 1 million kilobytes, and even gzipped it's 77 kilobytes, which is quite a lot. They don't mention it on the GitHub, I don't think. So let's try to find the GitHub there. Even though it is part of the same package. But let's see if it's just gonna work for us. I found this by just looking into the node modules. Let's see if it's in the same place. A lot light. It's fine, that's what we've been using all along, but Lottie Light also drops. I don't know about these extensions. All right, so half the size. Is it half as good? Because we are using animations that can be SVGs, it should work all the same for us in both cases. So that's cool. And yeah, maybe as an example, I can use it like this in both cases. Undocumented feature. Support for a couple more features that may leave your animations not quite working, depending on whether they are using things like expressions. So try Lottie Light with caution if you're... Alright, so then I push you into more videos of mine. Make sure to watch this one, it was really good. And we'll do the demo later. Let's see if we can apply the fade in just in time. And then we'll do the final demo. So what's our problem here? Our problem is here that for fast connections, this looks great. This loads in nicely with the appear animation. But if we were to try to simulate even fast 4G, you'll see that eventually it loads and we have no fade in because the container div has already been slidden in place. So I think we should be able to have there will either be an event or something in an animation item that will tell us whether the animation has been loaded or not. I think, and that's what I'll be trying to find out. So let's do the same thing. Outside of this, let's get a reference to the animation item, bring in the type, say if no animation item, and then I'm thinking that this class I guess I can bring in the CLSX helper. Class names helper. Bring it in. And I want to say that the fade in animation, fade in once animation, I want it to be equal to animation item. Let's see if it has anything good. Is loaded. Great. But only if that exists. It's not face in once, it's fade in once. Is it fade in once? Maybe it's something else. Let's look at our development config again. It is fade in once, so not quite. But it's animate fade in once. All right, there you go. Nailed it. All right, so conditionally, we only apply this class if the animation item exists and is loaded. So we only put it on when the animation has been loaded, and therefore that's when our div magically slides in to view. Cool. So that's something new we've shown today. Even on the slow connection, you can see that we get it from the browser cache in this instance, so it's fine. Pretty fine. Good. Awesome. So ultimate live demo time. I'll be deploying this right after the stream, so you can have a look for yourself. But the big idea is that in our main hero page, we've added this eye-catching animation. And it looks cool, doesn't loop perfectly, but we talked about how to loop, how not to loop, how to autoplay, all of these things. And the big thing we did is this throttling thing, where we're waiting to see whether the animation has been loaded before we start the fade-in animation. If we don't do this, then the div that's the container for the animation slides in invisibly, and we just miss it, and then the animation pops up. And we also said that it's important to specify the exact height of the container so you won't get problems with cumulative layout shift, much like you do with images. Again, this is a big animation. Lottie is relatively a big library, so watch out. You may not want to do this on every page, like don't have your header element have a fancy animation all the time. But if you do, maybe you want to do something clever with only loading things, like streaming some things on the client, loading them progressively, that sort of thing. Then again, the goal of any app should be to get a smile out of the user. There is a case for usability, there is a case for UX. Sometimes good UX is like make a user to smile. If you make a user smile, you have a fan forever. So, you know, be cautious about what you're putting above the fold, but keep having fun with your sites. The other thing we did is play an animation that I really want to change. That's why I'm not deploying right now, for hearting and unhearting travels. So we click, you can see you get this nice little animation, too little animation to be honest. And similarly, when you unheart, you get a little animation that's a bit delayed, like I'll need to play around with this a bit more. And we have put this inside a SADCN button, so you do get the accessibility support as well. People can navigate the button, just press it, and everything is just gonna work, which is cool. And that's about it for today. We've talked a little bit about other options, including the suggestions in the chat that I'll need to have a look at offline. I was thinking that maybe one of the next streams could be Rive, which is a bit of a Lottie competitor, and I know that they do develop their product quite a lot. Lottie has a huge benefit that if people know After Effects, they can create animation there, export it, and everyone's using it. It's amazingly popular, like over 30k stars. There is an ecosystem around it with LottieFiles. You just use it. Rive being like the other player of this, they are working harder to add cool features to their player. It should be better bundle sizes in most cases, but last time I tried it at the time of this video, it was a bit too complicated and too confusing for me. And if you know After Effects, why pick up another tool? If you don't know After Effects, why not pick up After Effects? That could be useful in other places. And the big thing, I guess, is like the community files. I can have a look here. They added a search bar. All right, in the 2 years I've been complaining about this, they have added a search bar here in Rive, so I could have search for star or heart. The saddest heart in the world. All right, beating heart. Anyway, that's by the by. I'll be looking at other tools as well. There are many tools like Motion One or the one by Joy of Code that I suspect are doing more things with native CSS animations, maybe more things with SVG animations. These do get into the SVG render in the end. But it feels like for a hard animation like this, someone that knows enough about CSS and SVG paths can create something cooler than this without using Lottie. But for something like this, that's harder for me. Like I can see the parallax, I can see that it is possible with CSS, but sometimes you just want to say to an After Effects expert, design me something cool about this, and you get it done. Oh well. And before I start rambling too much, I'll open the floor to any more questions. Thanks a lot for the chat companionship today. I appreciate everyone watching, spending a bit of time with me, but in particular, always the people in the chat keeping me company, teaching me things and asking me things that sometimes I can answer, sometimes I cannot. This is a great, great pleasure of mine. But yeah, some more check marks while I wait, and we'll call it a day. Suggest in the comments, suggest in the Discord what you'd like to see next. Arrive is likely. The other thing I was thinking is that the big news yesterday was that the ChatGPT site is now Remix. Wow, Remix. So I was thinking maybe we could go through the Remix tutorial and talk about Remix a little bit. I was a Remix backer back in the day when it was closed source, not because I expected it would pick up popularity, but I love the team. I think they have great ideas, and they had ideas that I wanted to have in my mind as I was looking into other frameworks, including Sapper, which became SvelteKit, Next.js later. I think SvelteKit, early SvelteKit, got a lot of ideas from how Remix worked, and then Next.js got a lot of ideas from how Remix and SvelteKit worked, and then SvelteKit again like redefined their approach. So I would be interested into doing a proper stream about Remix. After so much time, I will need to find my Remix supporter zip-up hoodie to do so. Not hoodie, zip-up jacket, I guess. The big news was that ChatGPT started switched from Next.js and Vercel to this. So interesting. I don't know. If you'd like to see me dive deeper into this, let's have a look. It's always good to look at all frameworks, I would say, but it's not always good to do live streams about every framework in the world. The great ideas do pollinate across frameworks, so it's cool to see. It's like, oh, Remix got this idea from SvelteKit, and SvelteKit got this idea from Remix. I find it fascinating, really. But other than that, other than my suggestions of what I should cover next, let me know what your suggestions are. Have a look at this video, which is more succinct than the stream today. There were a couple things that were Svelte 5 only. Specifically, I will highlight this. Binding this to the animation container, we need to make this using the state rune in order for this to be reactive. In old Svelte 4, it just worked. Now it caused complications. For some reason, only in this case where you had multiple of the same element in the panes. But yeah, that was the big difference from the video. That video was Svelte 4 because Svelte 5 didn't exist. All right, I think this is going to be it for today. Again, it was a pleasure to do this live stream. And I hope you all have lovely, lovely weekends. And I will catch you on Tuesday. Bye.